Hails and welcome to Rauta's Challenging the Classics. This time we go to Norway, but we are not going to talk about a black metal band like some of you might expect when we're talking about Norwegian extreme metal. Instead we go all the way to death metal, but with a black metal past. Let's enter Myrkskog, the band that was founded in 1993, but more or less became more active with 1995, having a demo out, then another demo, and then entering an album phase with the first album called Deathmachine in 2000. That was followed a couple of years later by Superior Massacre 2002, which I guess some people consider better, but I prefer the first one. Both are really good ones, but the first one is really that, in my opinion, rocked the boat. Why I decided to go with this album? I mean, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, they played at Inferno Festival, so I was kind of reminding myself how good of this band was, because I already had agreed to do Myrkskog interview at Inferno, which I did. Met those guys, they're all great and wonderful, friendly people, making some good music, playing some intense death metal and all. But yeah, I decided to go back with that, because I enjoyed the show. Intense, technical, modern death metal, click, 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 having all the aspects I could hope for from a death metal band. I mean, I do like old school death metal, but there's a special place in my heart and mind for technical death metal or modern death metal. They might not be always overlapping, but in this case they both do. And I'm talking about, for my love, about like bands like Nile or Origin and stuff like that, which are maybe old as such already, but they are not exactly playing their old kind of a death, autopsy, Cannibal Corpse, obituary. You get the idea, kind of death metal. So Myrkskog comes from Norway, which isn't exactly a country that you know death metal for. I mean, the thing here is, most Norwegian extreme metal bands are more or less all black metal bands, or Viking, pagan, whatever. But the thing here is, black metal has always been so much dominating Norwegian territory, whereas death metal and thrash metal is, I guess, even more, has been always more like, okay, yeah, let's put it in the past. A lot of those black metal bands, though, then again, started as death metal. Whether we're talking about Dogthrone or early phase of Immortal Guys or Burzum, whatever, you have that stuff. Even for bands like Emperor and the like. There's a strong death metal background before they started doing black metal. So things changed between, 1980s and 1990s, or roughly the early years, and things started to happen. But Myrkskog was of another breed. The thing here is, they started as a black metal band. Early 90s, though, not late 80s, but still, they went the other direction. So maybe they were a little bit rebels. Now, mostly I guess, at least, Norwegian death metal comes to a band called Cadaver, which is one of the originators of the given style in Norway and has been, stuck into that for good and bad. But a lot of other bands were more like less forgotten. There are bands like Zyklon, which then again became like kind of offspring of black metal bands, but Myrkskog was doing their stuff before that. And unfortunately, we haven't gotten a new album in 20 years from these guys, but I guess there are reasons. After all, they do have side projects and they were more or less active with some of the other bands, and this is something that you might want to take a look at. I'm keeping rambling before we get to the actual album, because these are, in my opinion, some important things that you need to know and need to understand about Myrkskog. Even if you think like, okay, I know the story and I know that all. I'm not going to the full history, obviously, because that's why there's interviews and all that stuff, and it's not like I'm expert on anything, but going a little bit for details. For example, Destructor, known for Myrkskog, but I guess more importantly, especially the recent years, he was a big part of Morbid Angel as the second guitarist. Also, he was quite a live session member for various bands, including also Odium, which is here first of all mentioned for a reason. Because Sektamen, man capable of doing multitude of different instruments, he is also big part of Odium. One could say he is the Odium. He's a multi-talented guy who knows, the sing, to do guitars, and who knows what, drums it seems, and all that stuff. And these two guys are more or less the main guys. But there is also one more who is here, created a live musician. I don't know if his more stable position in the band. I mean, he was, after all, with the interview and all, but whatever, I'm not going to touch the subject in terms of this review. But Niels Fjellström, a very, very talented drummer, Great live guy. And by the way, nice person too. And he is also part of this thing when you go to see the band, live. So there's plenty of talent in this band, and doing that kind of stuff and performing that stuff live is like, yay, it's good. But now let's talk about the first album, Deathmachine, that came out 22 years ago, or more than that if we count months into the whole thing here. Now this is pretty basic when it comes to the structure of the album. I mean, the basics being 45 minutes, 10 tracks, blah blah. This is almost 44 minutes and 9 tracks, so you get the idea. The last track, however, is something totally different. It's almost like giving a middle finger to the audience. Why so? Because this Pillar Deconstruction Syndrome 9 remix is a techno song. It's a techno song made of these elements that the guys have here as, death metal. So it's kind of like, going very different directions. A lot of metalheads, me included, especially back in the 90s, are like, yeah, I hate the techno music, I hate the dance music and all that stuff. Nowadays, I probably don't really hate it, but it's not my thing. Yet still, that last track being here more like a bonus track is like, okay, cool. These guys know how to do this kind of remixing, how to do techno. So it's more like showcasing what they can do and what they will do if they want to do that. Now, it's not my favorite track, obviously, but it's not like I mind it. It's just something different, and these guys kind of approve it. They have the skill, they have the talent, and etc. But for these 8 actual death metal tracks on this album, everything is great. I mean, it's full of technical details. It's full of wonderful riffs, which are very blackened in the sense of death metal. Some of them really could be coming from a black metal band, which I guess is very much because these guys actually have a black metal background. So it's modern and technical death metal with a black metal twist, which makes this interesting. I think a lot of Ziggulan material is kind of similar because of all that. Having black metal background and then more like doing modern death metal, which is actually, by the way, something that Behemoth did with the, the mid-era of their whole career, actually early 2000s and all. So it's not like these are the only bands that decided to jump on the boat, but it still makes this album a wonderful, and even if not unique, one of the rarer kind, because once again, Norway isn't exactly a black metal country, and even less so when we're talking about more modern technical death metal, because all the bands I mentioned, all the backgrounds related to these black metal guys doing death metal, well, they were old school. I mean, even if you listen to Soulside Journey by Darkthrone, the debut album, I mean, even though it's not the most simplistic, boneheaded old school death metal, it's still more like old school death metal. It's not like very modern, and it's not, hyper technical in the sense. So this is very, very different. This is also very fast paced, but it never drives, ahead or forward because just pure pace or high tempo. It's more about interesting, detailed riffs with wonderful amount of catchiness. I gave this quite a few listens, and I'm still like, I have a thirst for more. Hence, I added this to my buy list because I realized I don't have this as a physical copy. So I was listening to just this one on Spotify multiple times while driving, while doing something, and I was like, man, I need to get this track in my compilation or collection because this is in fact a great album. In my opinion, this is more than just 81% here based on 3 reviews on average, because indeed this doesn't have weak links except maybe for the last part, but I already explained it, so no need to recap that. Overall, a great technical modern death metal album that totally requires more successors than that one album that came after that. It's more like a little bit more honed version of this, but also kind of losing a little bit of the magic because it's so much going off, off-site. I think it's going to say off-road, maybe being the better word for that. Overall, both albums are good, but this is better. This is actually great. The other one is just good, if you get the idea. But yeah, this is something that probably a lot of people missed back in the days, or people have been overlooking it because it's not Norwegian black metal and all that stuff. And let's be honest about it, if there's one bad thing about this album, this cover image and the logo, god damn it, these are not really cool. This is very, very forgettable, but then again, this was kind of a typical during that era. A lot of bands had these kind of modern looking covers which didn't really make any kind of a wow feeling. But that doesn't matter. I mean, you don't really judge an album by the cover, do you? I hope you don't, because this is definitely worth taking a look at. So yeah, check out Deathmachine, once again, if you haven't been listening to it, or if you need to just revisit and get the idea what I'm talking about. And also, now that you are following this video, maybe take a look at the Myrkskog interview we did at Inferno Festival 2022. Good guys and good talks, in my opinion, so I think you should really do it. Thanks for your time, this is Rauta, and see you soon with more classic reviews coming away. Cheers!